Walk into almost any American mall in the 1990s, and one store practically glowed from a mile away. Bright purple signs, glittery earrings, racks of tiaras and hair clips, and right by the window, that famous piercing chair. For millions of kids, Claire's wasn't just a store. It was a rite of passage. But fast forward to today, and the same brand has filed for bankruptcy again. Not once, but twice in less than a decade. For a company that pierced more than 100 million ears and once dominated shopping malls, the question is, how did it all fall apart? And is there still a future for Claire's? Claire's began in Chicago during the 1960s, when entrepreneur Roland Schaefer shifted from selling fashion wigs to jewelry and accessories. He bought a small chain called Claire's Boutiques and turned it into his new focus. The timing was perfect. As malls spread across America in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, Claire's became a centerpiece of teen shopping culture. By reinvesting profits and acquiring rivals, the company expanded into nearly every major U.S. shopping mall. For a generation of kids, that ear-piercing chair was almost a cultural milestone. Add in thousands of stores worldwide and sales climbing past $1 billion annually, and Claire's was riding high. By 2006, the company had record sales, record profits, and zero debt. But in 2007, everything changed. That year, the Schaefer family sold Claire's to private equity giant Apollo Global Management for $3.1 billion. On paper, it was a lucrative exit, but Apollo financed the deal mostly with debt. Overnight, Claire's went from debt-free to owing about $2.3 billion. From then on, hundreds of millions of dollars each year were siphoned into interest payments rather than reinvestment. Over the next decade, Claire's spent almost $2 billion on interest alone, money that could have modernized stores, funded e-commerce, or developed new products. And then came the Great Recession in 2008. Shoppers tightened their wallets, malls emptied out, and for the first time in 15 years, Claire's saw its sales decline. The company had built itself as the ultimate mall brand, just as malls themselves began their long decline. By 2018, the debt burden was unsustainable. Claire's filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, restructuring about $1.9 billion in debt and closing underperforming stores. Creditors like Elliott Management and Monarch Alternative Capital took over ownership. At the time, the company still had some advantages. The piercing service remained a unique draw, and brand recognition was strong. But the challenges were piling up. Ultra-cheap online rivals like Shein and Temu were luring away price-sensitive shoppers. Trendier chains like Lovisa and even Five Below chipped away at Claire's core customer base. And while ear piercing was memorable, it wasn't exactly repeatable. A tween usually gets it done once, maybe twice. After that, what brings them back? After the 2018 bankruptcy, Claire's hired Ryan Vero as CEO in 2019. He launched a loyalty program, experimented with influencer marketing, and partnered with big box retailers like Macy's, Kohl's, and Walmart to put Claire's products in more places. But the numbers never fully turned around. Claire's generated roughly $1.4 billion in revenue in 2021, about the same as 2 decades earlier. The difference? Profits had collapsed. Margins were thinner than ever, squeezed by rising costs, tariffs on Chinese imports, and a highly competitive retail environment. Attempts to go public, once in 2013 and again in 2021, failed to attract investors. Buyers looked at the stagnant sales, heavy competition, and shrinking profitability and decided to stay away. Meanwhile, the pandemic hit foot traffic hard. Inflation added new pressure, and since more than half of Claire's products came from China, U.S. tariffs alone were estimated to add $30 million in extra costs. Cut to this year, Claire's was back in crisis mode. The company was carrying about $690 million in debt, including a loan of roughly $496 to $500 million. Due December 2026. Without a buyer or new financing, bankruptcy became inevitable. On August 6, 2025, Claire's filed for Chapter 11 again. This time, it faced the prospect of closing hundreds of stores. Filings showed as many as 700 U.S. locations identified for closure, with some reports suggesting up to 1,100 stores at risk if no buyer stepped in. For weeks, uncertainty hung over the brand. Then a lifeline appeared. Private equity firm Ames Watson, the same firm that owns brands like Lids, agreed to a $140 million deal to acquire Claire's North American stores and intellectual property. The deal covered roughly 795 to 950 stores, aiming to keep most of them open. It was a partial rescue, but it didn't solve all the problems. The brand still faces declining mall traffic, heavy competition, and a relevance problem with younger generations. So, what went wrong? Claire's didn't collapse overnight. Its downfall was years in the making, shaped by a mix of structural problems and cultural shifts. Analysts usually point to 5 big reasons, but when you dig deeper, you see how interconnected they really are. First, the Apollo Buyout. The 2007 leveraged buyout by Apollo is often seen as the turning point. By adding $2.3 billion in debt to a debt-free company, Apollo locked Claire's into years of financial struggle. Instead of investing in e-commerce or refreshing its stores, Claire's spent nearly $2 billion on interest payments. Second, economic pressures. Timing made things worse. The 2008 recession hit right after the buyout, and mall traffic never fully recovered. Later, the pandemic gutted foot traffic again. Add in tariffs that slapped an extra $30 million onto Claire's supply chain and inflation that forced the brand to raise prices, and you had a business that couldn't keep its value promise to budget-conscious parents. Next, declining mall traffic. Claire's was once in 99% of U.S. malls. That was a bragging point in 2018, but in hindsight, it was a red flag. Claire's tied its destiny to malls just as malls were falling out of favor. Yes, they tried partnerships with Macy's, Kohl's, and Walmart, even testing store-within-a-store setups. But those came too late and never generated the same kind of foot traffic that malls did at their peak. The fourth reason was competition. For decades, Claire's had no real rival. But by the 2010s, Shein and Temu delivered cheaper trends online, while Lovisa and Five Below stole traffic offline, offering accessories and even ear piercing. And last is Claire's outdated image. Perhaps the most painful part of the story is cultural. To today's teens, Claire's feels like a relic. Young shoppers want fast-moving trends, but Claire's purple walls and buy 3 get 3 free promotions feel stuck in the early 2000s. Right now, Claire's future hangs in the balance. Will the Ames Watson deal breathe new life into the struggling brand? Or will the purple-walled store become just another memory of mall culture past? Only time will tell. If you loved this video, do subscribe to the channel for more such business breakdowns. Thanks for watching.